Okay. So, how many of you in the class think you have good communication skill? Please raise your hand. Okay. Second question. How many of you think that I was confident, but growing up, I lost that confidence somewhere? Confidence in the sense, again, communication skill I'm talking. I was good in communication back when I was in primary school, something like that. As I grow up, I lost that communication skill. Okay, just raise your hand properly once again. Okay. Okay, fine. One last question. How many of you think that I have zero communication skill? Okay. Them said they have good communication skill. The other few students, like around 10 to 15 students, said they had good communication skill previously, but now for some reason they lost it. And others raised hand for they don't have any communication skill. You're mixed between second and third. Okay, fine. First, we'll ask these two students that why they think they have good communication skill and what helped them to build that good communication skill. Listen to your friend. It might help you all.
So basically, I think like in my class 8, 9, and 10 standard, I participated in a lot, literally a lot of quizzes, debates, speech competitions. I won many of them, and I had a fear of.
Yeah, stand.
So during my 9th and 10th standard, I literally had a lot of fear speaking in front of many people. So I pushed myself and started participating in many debates and many speech competitions. And I feel like that helped me a lot. Now I feel like I have a good communication skill. I can start talking to unknown persons, talking like welcoming and greetings. So yeah.
Is there any exercise or any kind of practices you have done to build the communication skill? No?
Taking competitions.
Okay, mostly participating in the competitions and interacting with the strangers, he built his good communication skill. At the same time, he built his confidence also. Okay, just let us know how you built your communication skill. What helped you?
To be honest, like if I have to say how I have built good communication skills, then I feel like communication basically means what you want to speak is crystal clear, understood by the front person. I feel like if the front person understands 100% of what I mean, then I feel like yes, I have good communication. It doesn't mean that speaking on stage only means you have good communication. Only what you want to say and then the front person can understand better what you really want to feel. I think that having good communication starts from there.
Okay. So, in her opinion, it is most like one on one conversation. He said by participating in the competitions and taking part in different activities, it is mostly like a group part, what he said. But what she said is if the other person can understand what I have said crystal clear, that is a communication for me. That is more like one-on-one communication. She is good in one-on-one communication. He is good in both type of communication, one-on-one and group also. So what about others who raise their hand that we were good while when we are little or when we are young, but we lost that as we grown up? You both raised your hands, right? Yeah, please share your thoughts. What about others who said we don't have any kind of communication skill? What went wrong? Isolation. Isolation from what? From everything. Okay. Others? So, what made others to not build any kind of communication skill in their entire life? She said isolation. She got isolated from everything and from everyone, it seems. So, she didn't build any communication skill. What about others? What is the reason why you people didn't build any kind of communication skill? If I'm not wrong, most of the school will teach us how to communicate. There will be a sessions for that, maybe in your primary or in your high school. So tell me what went wrong that you people never built any kind of communication skill in your life. Yeah, this is exactly what happens when there is only one person speaking and you are not communicating. This is the issue. This is the reason why they have added the EdCom session called Foundations of Communication, so that both the faculty and the students interact with each other, build some communication so that it will help them during their college days and also in their professional days, maybe when you start working as a patient. Now your duty is to interact with the faculties, maybe it's a teaching faculty or non-teaching staff. With both you should interact, that means you should communicate. Later when you start working, you have to communicate with your colleagues and also with your patients, very importantly. Okay? So tell me, as a doctor or as a medical student, what qualities you should build to improve your communication skill? What do you mean by communication, at least? A basic definition. Communication is nothing but the most effective way of exchanging the information. Okay? So communication is nothing but the most effective way of exchanging the information, maybe in the means of speaking or by the means of listening. Okay? Sometimes you speak and you will get to know how you can communicate. Sometimes you will sit back and listen. Through that also you will get to know how to communicate. In both the ways it will work. Right? Okay. So these are the few learning objects for today's session. The very first objective is the importance of communication in the healthcare profession. Then to explain the principles of communication in the physician and patient relationship. And to define the role of Indian medical graduate in terms of being a good communicator. The first two sessions or first two objectives I am going to discuss. The last objective is up to you guys. Okay? So, why do physicians require good communication skill? It's a question. Why a doctor need a good communication skill? What is the need? To comfort the patient. Okay, fine. Next.
If the doctors do not have good communication skills, they will not be able to take information properly from the patient.
Okay.
Which is important for the
Do you all heard it? If the doctor does not have good communication skill, he'll be not possible to take the information from the patient. That is also right. Next. What are the other reasons the doctor should have good communication skill?
To build trust with patient. To build trust with patient.
To build some trust with the patient. And okay, among the colleagues, fine. Any other points? A doctor should build, or a medical student should build a good communication, because ultimately the goal is to treat the patient and get the best outcome, right? So if you want to get the best outcome, starting from the day one when the patient visit you until you treat them, throughout the journey, you should communicate with your patient. Okay? So for that reason, a doctor should have a proper communication skill. So what helped the doctors to build that communication skill? First and foremost thing, he should be confident enough to talk with the patient. And remember, the patient won't come alone. With the patient, there will be a caretaker or a family member. So when you are interacting with the patient, you should interact with the caretaker also or with the family member also. And we all know not everyone will have that calm and well behavior people. So some will be rude to you, some will be very fine. So you should be prepared for every situation where you can handle both the patient and their family members also, right? So poor communication skill often lead the physician to perceived as arrogant, non-empathetic, and non-compassionate. On the other hand, good communication skill might help showcase the doctor as supportive, open-minded, and also caring. So if the patient feels that you are a caring doctor, they'll open up more and they'll talk about their problem completely with you. If they find you arrogant or non-empathetic, and if they think that you are not very compassionate person, even though they want to share you so many things, they'll end up their talk. Maybe the session will end in just 5 minutes, right? In the sense, consultancy will end in 5 minutes. So if you look like a very supportive doctor, if you look like someone very open-minded, they'll be comfortable to share their personal issues also, so that you will get to know more about their health condition. Thus, the importance of good communication skill for healthcare workers include the following. They should be able to demonstrate the good clinical skill. What do you mean by that? A doctor should be able to demonstrate good clinical skill. Mostly the senior doctors might not check your heartbeat or blood pressure, but if you go to the hospital, there will be some intern doctors who will be assisted by the senior doctors, right? So in front of them, they'll ask you to check the heartbeat and sometimes the blood pressure and also sometimes the body temperature, all these things. So you should be able to perform all these clinical skills perfectly. So it will bring you some confidence so that you can sit and talk with the patients right in front of your senior doctors. Okay. Then to maintain the patient adherence to treatment. What do you mean by adherence? Following. Okay. Next. Mostly the word stands for attachment. Okay. So to maintain patient's attachment to treatment. So there are some patients who will be not ready to follow up the treatment what you are suggesting. So you should be able to convince them. You should sit and talk with them and with their family members and convince them that this is the right treatment for your condition or from the disease whatever you are suffering. You should be able to have that capability to interact with the patient and their family. The next one is to explain the need for follow-up. What do you mean by that? To explain the patient and their family that what is the requirement for the follow-up. Not every disease or not every patient you can cure in just one consultancy, right? Sometimes even if you just go for a fever, they'll ask you to visit the doctor one more time. So, but if you say this to any normal patient, they'll think that you are just behind the money. So you are asking them to come one more time. You want the consultancy money. Maybe the consultancy fees is 250 or 300 for like one time. Then the medicine will cost like 700 to 800. So one visit for doctor will cost the patient around 1000 to 1200. So what they think is, if you ask them to like come up for the follow-up or one more consultancy, they'll think that you are behind the money. You want that money, so you are asking them to come back. So you should have that knowledge to convince the patient and their family why that one more consultancy is important for your condition, why you should come back. Okay. Next, patient satisfaction, followed by patient and healthcare delivery system safety, team satisfaction to reduce malpractice, quality healthcare outcome and improving health status of individual and society. What do you mean by team satisfaction? No doctor will work as an individual person, right? So even if you go for a small clinic also, there will be a doctor along with them, one receptionist will be there, and there will be one nurse, and there will be one cleaning person. So everyone will be considered as a team, right? So you should have proper team for your hospital or clinic, and you should be able to communicate with everyone with respect. Okay, so that will bring the team satisfaction. Anything else you want to add here? Okay. Communication process. How the whole process of communication takes place in the healthcare department? How the communication process takes place in the hospital in general. See, if I am a patient, I don't go to the doctor directly. First, I'll go and inquire with the receptionist if the doctor is there or not. Then they'll give me my token. I have to sit and wait. Later, before entering into the doctor, there will be one intern or nurse who will ask about my illness. What is the problem? What is the issue? First, they'll take the note, everything. They'll check my weight also. Sometimes they'll check your height, weight, and what body temperature, everything before you go and sit in front of the doctor. They'll do all these things. Later, that report will go to the doctor, and then they'll send you inside the doctor. Doctor will see that, then you will get a chance to interact with doctor. This is the whole process. What about the other things like blood report, urine report or urine test samples, followed by your X-rays, MRI, how the process takes place? So how the process takes place? If you just go for a fever or cold, yes, you can directly see the doctor. Later, they might tell you to go for blood test, and then they'll ask you to come after 2 or 3 days to get that reports and all. So how the whole process takes place at that time? So how the process of communication takes place in hospital? See, now if you are going for a blood test, so how that report will be checked and all those things. You know, right, how the process takes place. Whatever you know, you just discuss once. Others, any idea what these process will stand for? Can you explain them? Any one of you? Yes.
First, we go to reception and we go ask for blood sampling.
Okay. Can anybody discuss about these points? What I have displayed? The process of communication involves the following components. The very first component is sender and source, followed by encode, message, decode, receiver, communication channel, and the last one is feedback. Can anybody explain this? Okay. The very first component is sender and source. So what happens is, when once a patient comes and if you are sending for a blood test, it's not every time they are going to check the HP. Sometimes they'll check for some other test. Sometimes they'll run the different test for different conditions and different process, right? So you should be able to understand what kind of test a patient needs right now in this situation. Okay, that is the sender, and you should know where you are sending your samples, which department the samples are going, and how long it will take for them to send back the reports, so that you can inform the patient when they have to come back. So imagine if you are telling a patient to come back after 2 days, but the reports will take around like 4 days. So it will be again miscommunication between you, patient, and the lab people. So you should always know for which test how many days it will take, and especially the hospital or the unit where you are working, how much time they will particularly take to give you the reports. Keeping that in mind, you should tell your patient when to come back to collect the reports and when they can again come back and take the consultancy from you. Okay. Then the source. Remember, not all the tests will be run by the same hospital. Here also recently when I went for the blood test, they asked me to take like 3 different tests. Only 2 are conducted here. For one more test, they said we will send your sample to different lab. So it will take 4 days. Here for the test what they conducted, they gave me report in just 2 days. But the one they sent outside, that took almost 4 days to come. So after that, again on the 5th day, I went to see the doctor again. So like that, you should know the source, where the reports or where the samples are going, and what kind of test we run in our hospital and what are the kinds of tests we don't run in our hospital or unit, where those samples are going and how long it will take. You should have communication with that lab people also. And the next one is encode. What do you mean by encode? So now you have sent the reports, you have sent the sample, you have received the reports. Okay, and the patient has also came back for the consultancy. Now you have to encode that report for yourself. What do you mean by that? So whenever you get the report, most of the doctors will not check it previously. Usually the patient will go collect the report, then come directly in front of the doctor. Right? So for one patient, you will take hardly 15 to 20 minutes of consultancy. If it is anything very serious or very much time required, then you will go for 30 minutes. Otherwise, hardly you will get 15 to 20 minutes because there will be some other 20 patients waiting in the waiting area for you. Okay. So at that time, you don't sit and read the entire report. There will be 4 pages of report, but you should know where exactly I see, where exactly I should concentrate in the entire report, right? That's what most of the doctors will do. When you go and sit, within just 2 or 3 minutes, they'll tell you what is wrong with your report, what are the things you need to improve. How they will get to know? Just in 2 to 3 minutes.
They know in which area they have to.
Yes, because they have a idea or they have a knowledge in the report which area they should see and which area they should concentrate. They don't sit and read the entire 4 page of reports in front of the patient. No doctor will do that. If they do that, it will take like hardly 40 to 45 minutes for one patient for the consultancy. Right? So when you get the reports, you should encode the report for yourself first within 5 minutes. Okay. Next, message. What do you mean by message? The message what you will convey to the patient. Okay. So not every patient who will come to you will be an educated or a literate person or their families also. So in that case, you should be able to tell the patient in a very simplified way. You cannot use the medical terms in front of them. You may use it, you can use it, but they won't understand those terms. So at that time, you should be able to tell them in a very simple way. Even for few patients, if you use the words like nausea and diarrhea, they'll not get to know it. So simply you should ask them like, are you feeling vomiting? After eating food, are you vomiting? How many times you did the vomit? Like these kind of simple questions with simple terms and language, you should convey your message to the patient about the report. Okay. Then decode. What do you mean by decode? This is again decoding to the patient. So after conveying your message or talking about the report, what you are going to decode to the patient?
Break down the terms.
Break down the terms, okay. Then, so after telling your patient what is wrong with their report, decode means telling their families or their caretaker also what is wrong. And sometimes only the patient will enter into the doctor's room and their caretakers will be waiting outside. So you cannot tell the patient everything about their reports. So at that time you should make sure there is anybody with you or not, like that. If nobody is there, well and good. If the patient is strong enough to take the things what you are telling, you can discuss with them slowly. Otherwise you can call one of their caretaker or family members, then decode your message once again to that person so that they can understand what is going on in the report. Okay. Then we have receiver. What do you mean by receiver? Receiver is again patient, but how do you explain that part? Here the component receiver stands for what the patient will interact or communicate with you after giving them the details about their report. Okay, so it should not be a one-way communication. When once you are done explaining into the patient what's wrong with their report, what are the cautions or what are the precautions they have to take, after that you need to sit back and listen their side story also. Okay, that is called receiver. What do you mean by communication channel? Communication channel. First and foremost thing, language. Okay. Then when the patient first comes to you, in the first 2 or 3 questions only, you should get to know whether the patient will speak the language which you know or not. Okay? That is the one thing that you should concentrate in the communication channel. What about next? Nowadays, not every consultancy is like face-to-face consultancy. Many of the patients or people are taking consultancy through phone calls or through the chat, video calls also. So that is called communication channel. You should be prepared for all kind of communication with your patients. Maybe it's a face-to-face communication or through the phone call or video call, because some of us will get nervous suddenly when we start speaking in the video calls. So you should be prepared for that part also. Or sometimes, mostly in the metro city, because of their busy lifestyle, people are unable to come and check the reports with the doctor. Mostly the lab technicians or the lab person will send the report to the patient directly in the WhatsApp. Again in the WhatsApp, the patient will send that report to the doctors, and doctors are checking the report and replying them in the WhatsApp only. Mostly in Bengaluru, many of the hospitals are following this one method because of the time issues and all. Busy schedule of the patient where they are unable to come and visit the doctor often. Okay, so you should be prepared to communicate in all the means with your patient. Okay, then the last one is feedback. So if it is through the online, maybe it's a video call or a chat or anything, yes, they can send, you can just send them one link and they are going to give you the feedback. That will help the hospital management to know about the performance of the doctor or any other healthcare workers. Okay, what about face-to-face communication or consultancy? How you are going to take the feedback? Through How you are going to take the feedback in face-to-face communication or in the consultancy? First thing, if you are asking them to follow up, if they are coming for one more consultancy, you will get to know that the next time you can ask them for a feedback. How you are feeling now? Did the medicine work for you? If not, you can increase the dosage and you can give it to the patients. Any other way? After the consultation, we can give the feedback form. Okay, we can do that. But what if the patient is not in the condition to fill up the feedback form? Huh? Okay, the caretaker or the family member will do it. Okay, fine. So in a medical field, there is one unwritten kind of feedback, okay, where you will not get to know, or the management, hospital management will not get to know. But the patient, if they really like you, if they really think that your treatment has worked for them, the next time they are going to suggest your name for their family members or for their friends. Okay, you will not get to know they have given your name to that patient. Not even the hospital management will get to know. That is some kind of unwritten feedback that happens most of the time, that happens in the medical field. But they are going to suggest your name for their family and friends. They are going to tell that doctor is very nice person, he treats really well, he sit and talk, he'll slowly listen whatever wrong with us, he don't rush like other doctors. Like that, these kind of good feedbacks they are going to give for their friends and family members. Okay, anything else you want to add? That's it. Okay. An effective conversation involves two-way communication, so the message keeps passing from one side to the other. So your communication will become effective when it is only a two-way communication. Okay. So how the two-way communication will happen? As a doctor, how you stop talking? As a doctor, how you are going to make sure that the conversation or the communication is two-way from the Okay. Okay, fine. Anything else? The two.
The whole session, the patient is completely silent and the doctor is constantly speaking,
Mm.
then it's not a two-way communication.
Okay, right. So when you become a good listener, then only the communication will happen in two-way. So if you want to become the good listener, you should learn to improve your patience in the first place. If someone is talking and you don't have the patience to listen to them, you are trying to cut off them in the middle when they are talking, that will sound very arrogant and very rude, especially for the patient when they are not feeling good. Okay, so you must become a good listener also when you are working on your communication skill. It's not like if you want to improve your communication skill means you just keep on learning how to talk, how to behave, how to dress up. No, not like that. You should also become a good listener where you can sit back and listen to your patient even if they talk continuously for 5 or 10 minutes. You should give them the time. You should leave them to express themselves continuously, and you should not make them feel uncomfortable or anything like that. Okay. Components of communication. This is very important. Again, the EdCom 5 marks question. Okay. The two fundamental components of effective communication should be used judicially. They are as follows. The first one is verbal component and the second one is non-verbal component. Very well-known terms or very familiar terms for everyone in the classroom. Verbal component and non-verbal component. What do you mean by verbal component? What I am doing now is a verbal component. What you people are doing now is a non-verbal component. It's that simple. Okay, so verbal component is something that when you speak, when you use the language, when you use the words, that is called verbal component, which will also called as verbal communication. Okay, so what are the qualities you should concentrate when you are having a verbal communication? First and foremost thing, politeness. As a doctor or as a patient, both of you should be polite to each other. Okay, then you should concentrate on the language what you are speaking. If you if you keep on speaking in English with a patient who cannot understand the English, that will again bring a problem in your communication. So you should be able to understand what language your patient can understand and in which language you can communicate with them. Next, the tone, the pitch, and the accent what you speak. That also matters to your patient a lot. Not every patient whom visit you will be a strong patient. Some of them are very okay. So you should concentrate on your pitch, tone, and the accent when you are speaking with your patient, because some of them are very sensitive. If you raise your pitch or your voice, immediately they'll start crying. Again, you will be in trouble and you will be standing in front of your HODs. Okay, so concentrate on that part also. Anything else? Any other qualities for the verbal components? You should be a good listener also. Then you should maintain a politeness, followed by you should concentrate on your pitch, tone, and accent. Then what else? What do you mean by non-verbal components? Okay, gestures. Where you use some sign language or some hand gestures to interact. Yeah, to console or to interact with your patient. Okay, when it is required, when the non-verbal communication is required, mostly with the babies and kids, where they are fully not aware of the words and cannot understand your complete sentence. At that time, you can just make some hand gestures or some kind of sign languages and you can try to interact with them, right? And also with your old patients who are unable to hear properly. Okay, you cannot stand in the hospital or in the ward and like talk in a very loud voice with them. At that time, you can use this non-verbal kind of communication. Okay, so what about the qualities of non-verbal communication? What are the qualities you should build to improve your non-verbal communication? You can work on your body language, right? Then anything else? What are the qualities of non-verbal communication? At least, have you guys ever did any non-verbal communication with anybody? Yes. Then tell me. Cheating. Okay. Cheating in exam hall. Okay, fine. Very good example actually. Learning some communication signs or sign language basic things. Okay, fine. Next. by also maintaining the positive attitude and little bit of calmness in your face, because the sign language, especially in a countries like India, might be taken it in a very wrong way also. It might build some other kind of miscommunication, especially when you are treating an opposite gender patients. So you should be careful about that also. Okay. So verbal components always use the proper language of communication. The qualities are politeness, clarity in the message what you are delivering to your patient, followed by active listening, then proper tone, pitch and volume, assuring voice, confidence, empathetic terms, and keeping it in the very simple language where your patient and their family members can understand. Okay, next. Non-verbal communication, the body language and gesture should be proper while communicating to support its proper aim. The qualities here is body position, proper facial expression, maintaining a good eye contact, a decent eye contact, then gestures using your hand and eyes, personal appearance, proximity and distance, active listening, pause in communication and empathetic touch. Okay. Next, what are the types of communication? Two things we have already discussed: verbal communication, non-verbal communication. What about the other types of communication? There are total 6 types of communication which is mentioned in your account. The other 4 are one-way communication, two-way communication, formal communication and informal communication. Okay. What do you mean by one-way communication? Okay. Sometimes, yes, it is like only one person talking and another person is listening. But if I have to say it in a positive way, one-way communication is when the patient is busy and unable to come and visit you. At that time, you help them by sending them some important videos or any kind of awareness videos or photos to explain them the condition what they are suffering from. Okay, this is the positive way of telling one-way communication. One-way communication is not a good idea. As I said, it should be always a two-way communication. But if you want to say it in a positive way, the one proper thing to mention here is sharing the required information to your patient and ask them to go through it for the better understanding. Okay. Then we have two-way communication where you both sit and talk and the patient will get a chance to interact with you and clear all their doubts. Okay. The next one is formal communication. What do you mean by formal communication? Formal communication. Okay, what is informal communication? Informal communication. Formal and informal communication. Any basic definition or any basic example? Officially formal, okay. No, this is about doctor and patient. Okay, formal communication in the sense where you explain your patient that how and what type of medicine you should take and what kind of therapy you are suggesting them and what is the reason behind it. So this kind of conversation is called formal communication, where you explain your patient mostly how many times you should take the medicine, at what time you should take the medicine, and some doctors for few conditions they start the treatment or medicine from a very small dosage. Later they are going to increase the dosage. Okay, so some patients will get the doubt, why can't I take the high dosage now only so that I can cure better? Like these kind of conversations or questions will come. So at that time you should be able to explain your patient why I can't suggest you the high dosage right now. Maybe they are physically not fit or mentally not prepared to go through all those things. So you should be able to explain them. So these kind of conversations are considered as formal conversation. Okay, what about informal conversation with no, in terms of patient and doctor we should talk. So informal communication is where a doctor asks few personal questions to the patients. Okay, it should not be too personal also, but a very I can say like superficial or surface level of personal question a doctor can ask. If you remember when we are kids, mostly when kids are get scared of injections and all, the doctor will keep asking them, who do you like? Do you like mama or papa more? What's your favorite subject in school? What you have learned today in school? Like these kind of questions they'll ask. For patients, for adults, they'll ask like, where do you work? If they say different city name, the doctor will say like, I know someone from that city, or what is famous in your city. Do you have kids? What they do? Do they go for college, school? Like these kind of very surface level of personal question a doctor can ask or communicate with their patient to give them some comfort zone. Okay, so that will be considered as informal conversation or communication. So these are the 6 types of communication mentioned in your EdCom. The first one is verbal, second
also verbal and like formal communication is also like
yes. Listen, formal, informal, both are also verbal communication only. Okay, but the thing is, the way that we are introducing it to the patients or the coming doctors, it is different. Okay. So, how can effective communication can be developed? This question is more like, how can we develop an effective communication in the medical students? Just
that's only interacting, ma'am.
interacting with whom? Remember your ECE, early clinical postings? They introduced ECE especially for this purpose only, where they'll take the students into the hospitals and they will give a chance to interact with the patients and go through the records, everything, so that they learn how to interact with the patient in the early stages only. Okay. Next, anything else? Stop talking. You leave. Give your attendance and leave. So, in what other ways we can build the effective communication in the coming education, like in the medical students? How do you all interact with your patients at least? Tell me that. How you all are preparing. You might have done some mirror interview of yourself talking to the patient, something like that, right? Okay, tell me how many of you will talk in front of mirror? Question is very simple. How many of you stand in front of, if you just sit in your bed, stare at wall and then talk? No, not that. That is some problem. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm asking like where you are fully prepared, where you are fully confident. You go in front of mirror, you stand there, where you talk. Who will do that? Raise your hand. I'll do that. Others? Okay. Why do you do that? Okay. I'll ask her. Your friend is telling she'll feel very isolated. She won't get much chance to talk with others. So she'll just go in front of mirror and she'll talk whatever she feels. That's what she said. Okay. Others who raise their hands? Huh? Okay. So he's telling, stop talking. So he is telling mostly to give speech or to prepare for any kind of interview. He'll stand in front of the mirror and he'll prepare himself. Others, you raised your hand, right? Yeah. You want mic?
To give judgmental looks to myself.
Judgmental?
Judgmental looks to myself.
Okay. To give some judgmental looks or to judge whatever the day has been, like something like that, he do the mirror talk. What about you?
like like during like if I'm participating in any debate or like any competition, just to see myself how am I speaking, how am I going to deliver myself and like that.
Okay. Mostly she'll also preparing for any kind of debate or interviews. How she will look. She want to analyze that thing, so she will talk in front of mirror. Okay. So personally, even I do that. Mostly I stop talking. Mostly I have seen that somewhere in the Instagram, some content creator telling that you will feel confident, you can better yourself, all these things. So I also started trying back when I was in college, because during the college I got to know one thing, that I need to be in the teaching field. Doesn't matter what, I have choose this course, so I have to be in the teaching field. So maybe one day I'm going to stand in front of some 100 students or 150 students. In the previous college where I was working, there were 200 students actually. So that time I realized, if I won't do all these things now, maybe later I might get nervous in front of the students. So this thing really helped me to build this confidence for whatever I'm talking in front of you, standing like this. So if you want to improve yourself, there are so many ways. First and foremost thing, you can work on your vocabulary. Okay. Then you can improve your accent or the way you deliver your thoughts or whatever the things you usually communicate in your day-to-day life. Then followed by, you can do some exercises to improve your facial expression, and very importantly, you need to build some patience. Okay, you have to work on your patience. You cannot just react within a second. Whatever the situation is, you need to take pause, you need to think about it, and then you should react. That is very important here. Okay. Any other points? Any other points? Any other ways you know to build the effective communication skill? That's it? To see?
Self-appreciation, like appreciate myself.
Okay. Self-appreciation. Okay. She like to appreciate herself for every small win, maybe whatever she do in her day-to-day life. That will also helping her to build the confidence that required for her communication skill. Any other points? Those people who didn't raise your hands, no? Like who raised your hands for like not having any communication skill. You people should take these points and try to adopt it. It will help you a lot. It's not about being the doctor. Once you become the intern, you will get to know how much it will help you. If you doesn't have a good communication skill, you are going to end up in some kind of troubles. Okay? So what are the barriers? Can you explain the barriers here? So what are the barriers we face while building the communication skill? We have the attitude barrier, followed by sender barrier, encoding barrier, Can you explain that? Attitude barrier is somewhere when a person or a student or a doctor is not willing to change himself. When he think whatever he or she do is completely right.
Know it all attitude. Know it all attitude. Like know it all attitude.
Yes. So when someone is not ready to build any communication skill, or he or she thinks that whatever they do or whatever they talk, whatever their action is completely right, that is going to bring some kind of negative image in their working place and also during the college days. Okay. Then we have sender barrier. What do you mean by sender barrier? Remember the sender and source, what I have mentioned. So if a doctor is suggesting any test, he should be completely aware where the test is going to take place and what kind of information he is going to get back. That means a report what he is going to get back and how many days or how much time it is going to take. If he is not aware of that, again it is going to bring the sender barrier between the patient, doctor and also between the lab technicians or from the lab. Encoding barrier, where a doctor is unable to encode the reports within few minutes in front of the patient. Imagine going to a doctor who cannot read your report, who is taking more than 10 or 15 minutes or calling for help in front of the patient. Obviously, the patient will get panic and they think that, oh, this doctor doesn't know anything. I ended up in a wrong place. That's what they feel. Even before the patient reacts something, the family member who is with the patient is literally going to shout in front of the hospital, right? So a doctor should be able to encode the reports in a proper time. Okay, if they want to encode it properly, they should be aware of the subject first. So if you want to be aware of the subject, you should learn it properly, you should study, you should get good marks, then only you can do that. The next one is medium barrier, that is language. It is about the language and the communication channels what I have mentioned. Okay. Then decoding barrier, receiver barrier, feedback barrier and physical barrier. What do you mean by that? Decoding barrier, you cannot use complete medical term in front of the patient or in front of their families. Again, it is going to bring a barrier between you and patient. You should be able to explain the patient in the local language, what the region, maybe for PG you might shift to some other place, they might have a different language where they don't, maybe a Telugu or Tamil, something like that. So you should learn that local language and you should be able to interact with the patient in the local language and decode them the whole condition without using the medical terms. Okay. Then we have receiver barrier. If you don't make your patient comfort, if you don't make them feel safe, they are not going to open up and they are not going to share anything to you. Okay, only when the patient open up and completely share their problem, you can treat them. That is called receiver barrier. Then we have feedback barrier. If you won't get a proper feedback from the patient side, the management will take some actions on you. You should be in front of the management answering the questions that why you have got some negative feedback or review from the patient or from the family member. Okay, so the more you perform well in the hospital or as a medical student, your feedback will be good. Okay, the next one is physical barrier. What do you mean by physical barrier? Neither the doctor nor the patient should get physically distracted by each other. Okay, and when you are treating your patient, you should maintain certain distance. Okay, you should maintain a proper distance and you should make sure the patient is comfortable or not. If the patient asks you like, I want my family members to be inside with me, without even questioning them, you should let that family member inside. Or if they ask like, I want a female nurse to be inside, then you should allow the female nurse. If the patient has come alone and if they ask any female supervisor in the room, you should make sure that they'll get that facility to comfort them. That is called physical barrier. Okay. Anything else? Any other barrier you want to talk? Sender barrier. Sender barrier is like you should be aware where the reports are going, where the samples are going, and when you are going to get back that reports. Because if you think that I'm going to get the reports in 2 days, you will ask your patient to come back in 2 days. Later when the patient come back, the lab people will tell them, no, you have to wait 2 more days for the report. It will take 4 days for this test. So it will bring a lot of miscommunication between you, patient, and the lab people, because not all your patients are from the same city. Some might be coming from the village. They can't come for every 2 days just to collect the reports, right? So that kind of barrier is called sender barrier. Okay. Any other barriers? Huh? Language barrier. Okay. That is medium only. Fourth one is there, no? Medium barrier. In that only it will come. That's why I said you should be able to learn the local language where you are working. Maybe now you are in the place here where we speak mostly Bengali and Hindi. But for a PG, if you move out, or for a job purpose, if you move out, you should be able to learn the local language so that you can interact with your patient comfortably. Okay? Medium barrier, the same one. Okay. And medium, again I said we can have the consultancy through the phone calls or video calls and all these things. You should make sure to respect the privacy of the person or the patient. You cannot take their number or any other information from their number or anything like that. That kind of practices should not happen. That is called medium barrier. Okay. Any other kind of barriers? Any other barriers? That's it? Okay, fine. Tell me what you have understood or what helped you from this session at least. The next part is breaking bad news or death disclosure. Okay, one of the most difficult thing in the medical field, both for the patient and for the doctors also, and for all the healthcare workers. So how you are going to break the bad news for the family members and the patient? There is this one method called ABCDE method. It's a mnemonic. Okay. A for advanced preparation. Okay. So how do you do the advanced? Stop talking. How you will do the advanced preparation? Before breaking any kind of bad news into the patient or into the family member, most of the doctors are going to rehearse what they are going to tell or speak in front of the family members. Okay, most of the doctors will do this. Later they will go and they will talk in front of the family members. Okay, that is called advanced preparation. Then we have building therapeutic relationship. What do you mean by that? Medicine. So before at certain point a doctor will get to know there is nothing we can do from our side. It's already too late, something like that. So at that time, before telling the patient or his family, his or her family, once at a time, you should also prepare them in advance. You should tell them very honestly that it's already too late to start certain treatment or do anything from our side, but still we are going to try our best. This is how they are going to interact with the patient. Okay. Next we have communicating well. What do you mean by communicating well? When you go and stand in front of the family members to break any kind of bad news, you should give enough time for them. You cannot rush them. You cannot finish your whole news in the 2 sentences. You should communicate with them very properly. Give them a certain time and tell them what's wrong. Okay. Next, dealing with patient and family reaction. This is the 4th one, is very, very important. After telling any kind of bad news into the family members, you cannot just leave immediately from that place. You have to be there. You should stand there or sit with them, and you should be able to handle the emotions or the reaction of the patient and their families. Okay. The last one is encouraging and validating the emotions. So how we are going to encourage or validate the emotion from the patient or from his family side? Consoling them. Okay. Telling the? Okay. Giving them certain example where the same condition happened, but the person worked on it and got better, right? Next. You should never tell the patient or their family that they are overreacting or they are acting too much or anything. Okay, you should let them express themselves completely, whether it's a patient, whether if it is your regular consultancy also, you should let your patient express themselves completely. You should never make them feel like I'm overreacting or I'm acting too much at this situation. If you give them that comfort zone, automatically they'll express everything what they are feeling, and that is how you are going to validate someone's emotions. It's not only between the patient and doctor, it applies in our day-to-day life also. When you let that person express themselves completely, when they feel safe only, they'll think that they're not overreacting or overthinking about anything. Okay? Anything else? Any other way to express the bad news? This is the one common, there are many other methods, but this is the one common thing which is particularly mentioned in your textbook. Okay. For CR, I have sent the reference textbook for EdCom. Did you all receive the picture? For Ipshita, yeah. I have sent one, have you sent it? You have shared in the, okay. So that is the textbook you should refer for your EdCom. Okay. If possible, try to download the PDF. If PDF is not available, try to purchase that one book. Okay. It is very important for all your EdCom topics. Okay. Any doubts in this session? So this almost finishes our first 2 objectives. The last objective is up to you guys, how we are going to take what you have learned from this session and what are the changes you are willing to make to build your confidence and communication skill. Okay. How many of you think this session has helped you something to learn about the communication skill? Okay. What about others? So, how to develop a communication skill for undergraduate students? Yeah. Since you all are an undergraduate students, I have added your picture only. So, tell me how an undergraduate student can improve their communication skill. First and foremost thing, you should start communicating with your faculties when you are a student. You should stop talking among yourself throughout the session with your friend. Instead of that, you should talk with me. You should interact with me, communicate with me. Then you can build some communication skill. Okay? Next, what else you can do? You can start participating in the college events, whatever the events takes place, or the college events or any kind of conference that takes place in the different medical colleges. That will help you to build the communication and also to improve your contacts or network in your particular field. Okay? Anything else? First thing, always start interacting with your faculties. Second thing, start participating in all the college events. Doesn't matter whether you are good, bad, average, it doesn't matter. Okay? Nobody is going to remember that. What matters in the last is you took the participation. You participated in something. That's what matters in the last. Okay, there are many conferences or presentation competition goes on in different medical colleges. Try to get the information about it and try to participate in those kind of competition, which will help you. What's next? Next, what other things you can do to build communication skill? There will be seminar session for students. Okay, so I think in first year you will get around 3 or 4 times the seminar sessions. So whenever you get the seminar session, take a participation. Okay, actively involve in your group and try to present in front of your faculties and HODs. That will again build some confidence in you and also help you to improve your communication skill when you participate in a group with your friends. Okay, next, what else? Okay, family adoption programs. Okay, yes, family adoption program will help a student to definitely build some communication skill. Right, next, stop talking. Next, what else? You can build your own committee in the colleges. You can take the management permission. You can build your own committee in which you are interested. Later, you can approach your classmates, your juniors or your seniors. There will be some other people who are interested in the same topic. You can add them into your committee and later you can build your own profile in the college level. Okay? Anything else? Any other points? Anything else you want to add for this session? Any other points? Okay, let me collect some feedback.